We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Yud Amud Aleph in Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 110a. On the previous summit, the Gemara was discussing a case where a malva takes property, and the idea is that he's going to get the fruits of that property to pay off the loan, to pay off the money that he is owed. And then what happens is that the trees that he takes, they age naturally, and they're not producing fruits anymore. So the question is, can he just take the wood? Is the wood now considered to be like fruit? And that's the position of Abaya. And Rava says that's not true. The wood, or the trees rather, are considered to be like the principal, and they have to be sold to buy other land, and then he'll take the fruits from that land. And the Gemara is in the middle of bringing a proof to this question from a Mishnah in Meseches Ksubas. The Mishnah is discussing a situation where a woman inherits property from her father, and she's a married woman, so essentially the husband there takes it like nichse melug. He can take the peiros, but he's not allowed to take the actual principal. And the case over here is the way the Mishnah presents it is that they're not producing any peiros because these trees are old. And so the Mishnah says, Yimachru le'etzim, you have to sell it for its wood, v'ilakach ben karka, and then use the money to buy karka, to buy land, v'hu ochel peiros, and then the husband will take the peiros, he will take the fruits. And Rashi says, Yimachar has to be sold alma karnahavi. You see that it's considered to be like a principal. The ipira have it, because if it was considered to be like fruits, satikon rabbanan peiros labal, then the husband would just get the wood directly because the fruits go to the husband. And so therefore this seems to be a proof to Rava that it's considered to be like the principal. And the Gemara answers, Ema, rather you should say that the Mishnah does not mean to say that these were just old, like naturally old, but vihizkinu, rather that they became old earlier than they should have. Rashi says, vihizkinu kaftzale and zikna, elderliness, so to speak, jumped upon these trees below Zaman, and it was before their time. And so therefore in that situation, the Gemara had said on the previous summit that Abaya admits in that situation that it's treated like the principal. Viba Yisayman, if you want, I could say another answer. Lav miu kimna lahi kagon shenaflu la besada acheres to kakalia karna. Didn't we say that this case is talking, meaning in Ksubas, we said that the case is talking where it came to her from another field, and therefore the principal has been consumed. And Rashi explains, Lav miu kimna bechsubas beperaka isha shenaflu la nechasim. We said in Meseches Ksubas as follows, besada acheres, it's talking about another field, meaning shelo haisa hakarka shelo. The case over here is that the land did not belong to her. It was only the trees. Shayu dekalim besad shalacherim. These were trees that were in a field of others. To akalia karna didol agamri. So in that case, there is no principle whatsoever. If you're going to give the trees now to the husband, so then she has nothing remaining. So in that situation, that's where we would say this, what the Mishnah says, to sell it for its wood and buy land. Iamrit lishkalinu balakulu. Again, if the husband would take everything, then she would have no principle. But in a situation where she owned the land as well, maybe the halacha would be different. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. There was a shtar of a mashkanta desura, which just said years, but it did not specify the number of years. Rashi says, a shtar mashkanta desura. Again, this is a shtar of a mashkon of surah. Again, the way the mashkon of surah was formulated was that the lender takes the land for a specific number of years. After he has the land for that amount of years, the land returns to the original owner, and essentially the loan is considered to be paid off. But over here it said, b'mishlam shnaya ilin. It said, when these years finish, v'lo perish bo, but it didn't say how many years he actually gets to use the land. And so the Gemara continues, Malva Amar Shalosh, the Malva claims, the lender claims, he gets to use the land for 3 years, and Lova Amar Shtayim, the Lova says that he only gets to use the land for 2 years. Kadam Malva v'achlinu lepiri, what happened is that the Malva went ahead and actually consumed the peiros of the 3rd year. He took that even though it was under dispute. So the question is, me Naman, who is going to be believed in that situation? Rashi says, V'kadam Malva v'achlinu lepiri deshana shlishis, he took the fruits of the 3rd year, Mekame denitvei ledina, before there was a chance to go to the court. So who's going to be believed in that case? It's a machlokes amoraim. Rav Yehuda mar karka bechezkas ba'aleh kaimer. Rav Yehuda says that the land is in the chazaka of its actual owner, meaning to say the lova in this case wins because he's really the owner of the land, and so the malva has to give back the value of the produce that he took for that 3rd year. Rav Kahana says no, peiros bechezkas ochlein kaimi, that the fruits, the produce was already consumed, and so it stays in that chazak unless the lova can prove otherwise. The hilchasa kavase to Rav Kahana. The halacha is like Rav Kahana, that we follow the chazaka of the peiros. The amar peiros bechezkas ochlehen. He says again that the peiros are in the chazak of the one who consumed it. But the Gemara says v'akaimal the hilchasa kavase to Rav Nachman. But don't we say that the halacha is actually like Rav Nachman? Damar karka bechezkas baleo medes, that the land stays in the presumption of the owner of the land. And the Gemara says, Hasam over there, milsa delo la'avida ligluye. That's something that in the future, it's not going to be revealed one way or the other. We're not going to find out what the truth is. So over there, where it's say milsa de la'avida ligluye, so over there we say that the land stays where it is. But over here, milsa de avida ligluye, here is something that we really might be able to determine how many years it really should have been. We can ask the Yedim and find out how long the mashkan of Surah was. And so the problem is going to be that in this particular case, if we're going to take away the value of the money from this lender who took that third year of produce, we're going to take away the value of that produce from him and make him pay the love. And then we find out that it turns out that really it does belong to the malva. The money is going to have to go back and forth. And we're not going to make the bezin take care of the case twice. That's why we'd rather leave the money in the hands of the person who took the produce, so that this way, if we find out later it needs to be moved, then we will move it. It won't have to move twice. And Rashi explains, Karka b'cheskas ba'aleh omedes afagav delo tove ad la'achar achilas peros. Now, even though the claim is only being made after he actually eats the produce, anon basar karkas lina, we follow the land. V'chi mesafkalon shana zu shalmi, so we don't know exactly this year if it belonged to the lender, the borrower. Uki ara b'cheskas mari v'shalo kedinach lina lepiri. You have to say it really is the real owner. The true owner was the borrower. He's the one that has the land, and therefore you have to say that the malva took the produce and it was unjust and he really owes the produce. And the other opinion, the opinion of Rav Kahana, was becheskas ochlein omdos, that no, the fruits were already consumed, and therefore that's the chazaka. Kevan de kadim ve'achlinu, since he already ate it, so what's done is done. V'yasal afukim minei, you're trying to make him pay, you're trying to take money from him. Naisi raya de lav shalosh havid de basar achilas peros as linan, so you have to bring a proof that again that it wasn't really 3 years, and we follow the chazaka again of the peros. And Rashi continues, V'kaim v'lan hilchasok Rav Nachman bedine, don't we hold like Rav Nachman when it comes to monetary cases? But Rav Nachman karka becheskas ba'aleh omedes, Rav Nachman in general seems to side with Rav Yehuda in this situation. The karka goes to its chazaka. Where does he say that? Gabei socher merchatz mishnei maser zuv l'shana midinar zav l'chodesh. The case over there was that he rents a bathhouse and it's going to be 12 dinar for the year, but it's going to be a dinar per month. And the situation over here was that it was a leap year, so there was a question about that additional month. Bahashowal, that was earlier. V'afilu ba besof hachodesh, even if he comes at the end of the month, amar kulo l'masker kishenesab rashan. He said that the masker wins that case because we're talking there a situation where it goes to the chazaka of the landowner. And the Gemara says, Hani mili milsa de la avida ligluya. Over there, that's something we're never going to determine one way or the other. It's impossible to really make a determination what happens with that extra month of the year. Kilomar basar karka vade islan lemezal, meaning in a situation where you really have no way of clarifying one way or the other, you follow the owner of the land. Umiyu hani mili besafek shein omed liolam lehisbar. That's true by a doubt, which you're never going to clarify. Ki ahud mesaf kalon beinim tafes lashon rishon v'tafes lashon achron. We're never going to know whether we follow the first part of the statement or the second part of the statement. But over here, you can find out what the truth is. Because it's possible that the witnesses will come and they'll testify. And to make the bezin have to take away money twice, we're not going to do. Maybe the lender really does win the case. If we're going to take it away from him, we might end up taking it away from the borrower and giving it back to the lender, and that we don't want to do. So that's why Rav Nachman said what he said in that particular situation, but over here, that would not be the case. And the Gemara continues, Malva Omer Chamesh, if the lender says that he's supposed to be on the land for 5 years, again, this is a case where the lender is taking the land as collateral, and Lova Omer Shalosh, the Lova says, you're only supposed to be there for 3 years. Amar Le Aisi Li Shtarach, and the Lova says to the Malvish, bring out your shtar, prove that you're supposed to be here for 5 years. Amar Le, so the Malva says back to the Lova, Shtara Irchasli, I lost the shtar, I can't produce it. Amar Rav Yehuda says, Malva Nemon, in this case, the lender's actually believed he gets the additional 2 years. Migo di boy Amar Lekucha hi biyadi, because he could have said that I actually bought the land. There's something called a chazaka when a person is on land for 3 years, so he makes a chazaka on that land, and he can say that he bought the land. So since he could have said that, he has a migo, and therefore he's believed when he says that he gets an additional 2 years. Amar le Rav Papa Rav Ashi, Rav Papa said to Rav Ashi, Rav Zavid Rav Avira, Lo Svira Lu Had Rav Yehuda. Rav Zavid and Rav Avira do not agree with what Rav Yehuda said. They said that the lender does not win in this case. My time, and what's the reason? High shtar, because when it comes to this kind of a shtar, this is not like a regular shtar mechira where we don't expect the person to keep the shtar forever, and we say there's a concept of chazak after 3 years that the land is yours. That's not true by this shtar. This is a shtar to collect the debt. High shtar, kaven de leguvayna koi. This shtar, which is meant for collection purposes, mizhar zohir bay. He's certainly going to be careful with it, meaning the lender is certainly going to be careful. Umichbashu de kavshe, he certainly has not lost it. Rather, michbashu de kavshe, he's just hiding the shtar. Umichbashu de kavshe the shtar, he's hiding a shtar because he thinks thinks to himself, Ochla tartin shenin yasert, I'll be able to eat for an additional 2 years, and therefore we do not believe the lender in this case. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Ravina le Ravashi, Ravina said to Ravashi, Ela me'ata, but according to that, this is really a question on Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda was the one that said the lender is believed in this case, and he's asking, how can you say the lender is believed? Because hai mashkanta de surah, because by a mashkon of surah, the kasvi hachi b'mishlam shnaya elain te bakara da below kesef. Again, that's what we said earlier. The mashkon of surah was where the lender takes the land for a certain amount of time, and then it's written into the shtar. It says that once that amount of time passes, he gives the land back, and then below kesef, then the borrower owes nothing. So in that situation, if you're going to follow Rabbi Yehuda, hecha de kavshe l'shtar mashkanta, all he has to do is, if it's a situation where he hides the shtar, v'yamar l'kucha hi biyadi, he'll just say that he bought it, and he's going to hachanami de mehem, and you're going to say he's believed over there to say that he bought the land. Doesn't make any sense. How could that be? V'chi mesakni rabbanan milsa da'asi bali, they say that with the rabbanan institute something like a mashkanta de surah, which is going to cause such a loss of money that now all he has to do is sit on the land for 3 years, hide the shtar, and suddenly he can say he bought the land and he'll take the land away from the lova. That doesn't make any sense. Amar le, so he said back to him, Hasam takinu le rabbanan de moriara yoiv taska v'kari karya. Over there in that situation, what the rabbanan did to prevent that is, they said that the true owner of the land, which is the borrower, he should pay the tax, and he should dig all the irrigation channels, and then the other person won't be able to make a chazakah. That's why it's not a problem. But the Gemara continues, Ara de les la karya, but what if you have land that you don't need to dig irrigation channels? V'lo yoiv taskin, let's say there is no taxes to pay on this particular land. What are you going to say over there? So again, what's the solution? You have a situation here where the lender is going to be able to just sit on the land and it's really collateral, and then he'll be able to claim that he bought the land. Amarle said back to him, he says, no, so in that case, you're going to have to protest before the 3 years finish. If you protest before 3 years, then the person is not able to make a chazakah. The Gemara says, lo im chamai, but what if he doesn't protest? What are you going to say to that? And the Gemara says to that, well, that's the loss. That loss was caused by himself. He should realize he has to protest in such a situation before 3 years are up, and that's why we're not concerned with such a situation. And the Gemara continues, Aris Omer Lemechsa, Yeradati, if the sharecropper says that I'm working the field, I'm supposed to get half the produce. Ubalabai Omer Lishlish Horadati, but the Balabai says, no, I'm only supposed to give him 1/3 of the produce. That was the agreement. Me, Nemon, who's going to be believed in this case? Rav Yehuda Omer Balabayis Nemon. Rav Yehuda says the Balabayis is believed, he only needs to give 1/3. Rav Nachman Omer HaKol Kaminag HaMedina. Rav Nachman says you have to follow whatever the local custom is. And the Gemara says, Savar Mina, initially we thought, low pligi, that they're not actually arguing. Rav Yehuda and Rav Nachman were just talking about different places with different customs. Habi Asr the Shakal Arisa Palgan. In one case, we're talking about the local custom being that the sharecropper takes half. That's where Rav Nachman was saying, Hakol Kaminag HaMedina. And Habi Asr the Shakal Arisa Tilsa, in the other place where the Rav Yehuda said the Balabayis wins, the Balabayis wins because it's a place where sharecroppers generally just took 1/3. But the Gemara continues, Zamar Lahu Rav Mari Barad de Bas Shmuel. Rav Mari, the son of the daughter of Shmuel, said, Hachi Amar Abaya, this is what Abaya says, Afilu bi'asra the shakal arisa palga, even in a place where the local custom is to take a half, still pligi, still they argue, and still over there Rav Yehuda would say that the Balabayis wins. Still they argue, Rav Yehuda Amar Balabayis Nemon. The reason why Rav Yehuda says the Balabayis is believed is the Iboy Amar, because again he has like a claim of amigo. He could have said Sechir Lakitihu. He could have said this person is not a sharecropper at all. This person is just Sechiri. He's just like a hired worker for wages, or Lakiti. He's just a gleaner. He works for me occasionally, and so therefore, since he has this migo, he could have made an even stronger claim. He is believed when he says that the sharecropper is only entitled to 1/3, even if the local custom is 1/2. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Yisomim Omrim, if the orphans, if they say, Anu Hishbachna, we improve this particular land. The case over here is that a creditor has a lien on a certain property, and he's supposed to collect from this property if there's no money, and the orphans say, yes, you're supposed to collect from the property, but you don't get the enhancements of the property if we're the ones that enhance the property. Ubalchov Omer, but the creditor says, Avichem Ishbiach, it's not true, your father enhanced the property, and therefore I'm entitled to that as a creditor. The Gemara says, Almi Lahaviraya, who's the one that needs to bring evidence in this case? And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Amud Beis.